Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud Live. My name is Ricardo Zulueta, and this show was made possible by the Start Day One, which is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention. So one of the reasons we do this uh, show is because the nonprofit foundation has a more proactive approach in the way we help people, because most organizations and society in general is very reactive and tend to wait for mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. And we just believe that a more proactive approach is just more effective and better in reaching out to people. So what we've been doing with Thinking Out Live is getting different guests on board to talk about the subject of mental health. A lot of times it goes into different aspects, entrepreneurship, productivity, things like that. So things that are motivational, things that'll help you. And our guest today is actually, our special guest is Laura Saltman, where we're going to discuss how you can actually enhance your mental wellness by implementing conscious and consistent choices. So she actually began her career in television. She's an Emmy-nominated producer and correspondent who worked for things like Access Hollywood, E! News, Today. She was on air with Ryan Seacrest. But her life was crazy. It was turned upside down where, she lost her brother to cancer, her father to suicide, and, suffered multiple miscarriages and so many things that happened to her. And she just turned her life around. She went through a spiritual, mentor, and basically just turned herself around. And now she's helping other people, basically just heal themselves and get better. And today we're going to talk about her 3 C's to mental wellness, the conscious, consistent choices. So please welcome Laura Saltman.
Hey there. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I like that 3 C's.
Yeah.
Consistent choices.
Yeah, the 3 C's. So where are you calling from again?
The 3 C's.
No. Where are you calling from?
Oh, where am I calling from? I'm calling from Florida.
Florida. So, awesome. So anyway, I did a quick intro about you, but I just want my audience to hear from you, where kind of you came from, how you ended up being in a mental health space, your story, and then what you're doing today, So yeah, go ahead, take your time and just kind of get my audience to get to know you a little bit.
Well, thank you for having me. Obviously, it's an important day today. It's World Suicide Prevention Day today, September 10th. And as I told you, I had lost my dad to suicide after my brother passed away from cancer. So before all that, I was an entertainment reporter working for shows, like you said, Access Hollywood, Today Show, E! News, living a Hollywood life, enjoying being on red carpets and going to the Oscars and the Emmys and all sorts of fun activities and meeting celebrities and sometimes dating celebrities. And it was, it was a great life. But when my brother was diagnosed with cancer, those sort of things change everything. They change your perspective. They make you look at life through a different lens. And as much as I loved Hollywood, I just felt that I needed to make a change in my life. And then my brother passed away a year later. And I'm very grateful that when I worked at Access Hollywood, they actually gave me the time off to go visit him. So I was able to go, he lived in Vermont, and I was able to see him a lot during that last year, from the diagnosis to the day he died, which was almost exactly a year. And watching him go through his chemo and watching him go downhill, it was just made the soul part of me start to come out and say, hey, maybe there's a different way to life. And then from there, I started to see Hollywood in a different light, and that it wasn't really giving me what I needed on an emotional intelligence level. And I just needed a little bit of a shift. And then so my dad was struggling, and I was noticing some mental health problems in him even before my brother got sick. But after my brother passed away and my dad just went downhill, and I tried to help him. We did everything we could to get him help, to get him, crisis help. And it just weighed on him. And he had been retired and changed his job, left his job. So he just started to kind of lose it a little bit. And he was taking antidepressants, and that never helps you make clear, consistent choices when you're taking antidepressants. Your mind just is not clear. You're not able to help yourself. So he decided to end his own life, and it was a horrible time in my life. And then in the midst of all that, I was going through miscarriages and adoption failures, and my life was a hot mess, like just an absolute mess. But I had this one amazing bright spot in my life, and that was my son. And my son was young at the time when my dad passed. I think he was about 5, maybe, or 4.5. And I knew I had to be there for him. I knew I had to get up every morning and be happy for him, because he was a happy, joyful little boy. And I just wanted to teach him that, you know what, life can throw you lots and lots of bricks. And you can either take those bricks and let them bury you, or you can start to pile up your bricks and figure out how to get over the wall. And that's what I had been doing. So from that, you can see the books behind me on the screen. Those are my 3 books I ended up writing. I sort of went on this spiritual journey where I started working with mediums and clairvoyants and going to every spiritual guru I could find and reading everything that called to me, every book, every meme out there that called to me on spirituality. I consumed it. And I always say I spent like 4 years in spiritual college, where I just learned every day about the universe and why we're all here and how to work with the laws of the universe. And then opening up my own intuition, my own gifts as a channel, as a medium, things that if you told me 20 years ago, oh, you're going to be a medium and you're going to be able to talk to people who have crossed over to the other side, I'd be like, you're freaking crazy. That's never happening. And yet my soul had a different plan for me, a different path. And so I decided to follow that path, as hard as that path. And it had been a really difficult path up until this point, but I listened to the calling of my soul and put these books out into the world. And I always tell people it's like pieces of a puzzle. And the more pieces that you get, the more you're able to open up your own intuition, your own gifts. Because we're all intuitive on this planet. We're all psychics. We're all mediums. We're all clairvoyant, clairaudient, all those things. You just haven't put your puzzle pieces in just yet. And I just happen to have put them all, not all together. Because if they were all together, I wouldn't be here. I'd be over on the other side. But I have filled in enough of that puzzle to be able to channel and be a medium and do all of those things. And in that, I've been able to get these incredible insights and wisdoms that I share every day. I have an Instagram called Wisdom of the All, and the all is representative, and that's my books, The All of Everything, The All of the All, and The All That Is. And the all is representative of that power that lights the universe, whatever you call that one thing from which we all come, God, source, universe, Allah, whatever it is to you, that energy of the universe, that's the all. And that's the name that I was given. So I channel these daily quotes that are, trying to help us understand who we are and why we're here and how we can be living our life with more peace and more joy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the nice active
I talk really fast, so I try to get it all in there.
Yeah. Because so you're so used to getting interviewed, you got to get segmented or else they cut you off.
Exactly.
Right.
Totally.
I just felt that with that news that I was on. I was like, oh, wow, they cut out a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm glad they didn't segment it. They segmented it really well.
Yeah.
But so thank you. I actually forgot all about mentioning in the very beginning that it's World Suicide Prevention Day. So really appreciate you bringing that out. So, people that are out there, the stuff that we're going to talk about, it's all going to be meaningless unless you actually make a decision about something. And that's really important. I always emphasize that because, we read books, we learn things, we see 50 million quotes a day, but they're irrelevant unless you make a decision about something, and nothing's going to happen without that. So I hope that the things that we talk about, especially today in World Suicide Prevention Day, that you can kind of implement and execute, whether it's for you or for someone else, maybe help someone else. It's a really good day to do that. So, as I mentioned before, where this show is done, would start day 1. It'd be awesome if people can kind of check that out and see how we're helping other people, proactively, and the way we kind of just try to reach out instead of waiting for them to reach out to us. So that's really what we're doing there. And so let's talk about that. So Laura and I, speaking of, World Suicide Prevention Day, so our affiliation with that, at least on my side, was my eldest brother. I believe it was your older brother also, right?
My brother died of cancer.
Oh, okay. It was your dad. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it was your dad. Yeah. So I was actually 21 and my brother was 28 when that happened. And it's crazy because you still see him as that older brother. It's like, I'm so much older than him now. but I still see him just like older
Right.
than me. But even though I'm the one with the gray hairs and stuff now, it's crazy. But yeah, that was definitely a crazy experience. And at the time, I was more like numb, I guess, about it.
Yeah.
You don't really think
It's a great
about
word.
it. You don't really feel like talking about it. It's not something you discuss. You just, most of the time it's like, oh, I don't want you to feel like crap because of me. So it's all good. You don't have to console me. I got this. And so, I learned a lot from that experience. Well, actually the learning, I don't know about you, but it was the afterwards, right? When you have a clearer mind about it, you kind of go back. Usually when you're just in a better place, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I learned from my brother, my experience with my brother doing that, was that when anyone ever gets sad or depressed, and including me, and I tell people this, like, dude, no one's immune to this, is that it's not really because of your situation. It's actually your perspective.
Yep.
Because things like this happen all the time, and it's really your perspective that kind of changes. Talking to you, when was the actual shift in your perspective? Because I mean, you had a lot of things, like one after the other, one uppercut after the
Yeah.
other. Like,
Yeah.
and she's not going down. Like, But when did you finally decide, like, you know what, enough of this beating? You went Rocky style and was like, my turn,
Well, first of all, it's incremental. So it wasn't just, the one thing and it all sort of changed. My life just like changed completely. It was an incremental change. So I worked on myself every day for the last 7 years of my life. So
Yeah.
it's not just oh, I'm enlightened now and everything's fabulous. It is, you have to absolutely positively work through your situations and work through what's going on in your life. And so that's like something I want to make clear. Like, there's no pill you can take and all of a sudden you're happy. Like, It is a daily process. But the day that changed that, and I was going through all that, and I was as numb as you were with my brother as well. And so what changed for me really was the day I went to, there was this conference. It was called Connect Her. And I had been invited like months and months before my dad had passed. And I was like, it was in San Diego and I was living in LA, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go. But then after all of those things had happened, I was like, forget it. I don't want to go. I can't deal with this. But something was drawing me to go to this conference. And I just said yes, and I just went. And I remember sitting in this room full of like amazing women, and there were some speakers at the conference. And this one woman came up, and I'll never forget her. Her name was Marla Diane, and she was a motivational speaker. And whatever she was saying about the universe and how it's guiding you, and every word that came out of her mouth, I was like, okay, I just started bawling. I just started crying. I was just like, oh my God, like, I need to talk to this woman. I need to meet her. I need to, in person, I just need to go and have a conversation with her. So, I mean, I truly now know the universe definitely sends you where you need to be when you need to be there. And so she had a little round table, and there was nobody sitting at the round table. Like, normally lots of people go to the round table, like 8 people sit at the round table, but no one showed up at her table. And I'm like, wait, she's all by herself. So I just sat down right next to her, and I launched in, because I knew people were going to eventually come to the table. And I started talking to her, and as fast as I do talk, I spit out my story to her. And she looked at me and she's like, you need to go to the Center for Spiritual Living. It's right in your neighborhood, and you need to go and you need to listen to what they have to say. So I was like, all right, I'm going. So I went there. I had no excuse. It was like 5 minutes from my house. And it was the same situation where I sat down and I listened to the speaker. Her name was Kim Stanwood Terranova. And every word out of her mouth was making me like boiling inside of me, like, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. I want to be happy again. I want to have joy again. How can I find joy again? I'm not meant to sit here in my muck. I'm not meant to be depressed and sad. And I remember leaving there and thinking to myself, if something happened to me and I left my child behind, would I want him to live a miserable, horrible, crappy life? And I was like, no, I don't want my son to live a life like that. I want to be happy. Like, I'm going to stalk him if I'm a ghost, but I want him to be happy. And so that was it. That was the decision. Those 2 days were the ones that made me say, I'm going to fight. And so I looked up Kim online, And I found her online, and she was doing one-on-one sessions. And I decided to not only go to her to seek like a spiritual counselor, but to go to grief counseling as well, because I knew that, I needed some sort of grief counseling to go along with it. And I worked with her for 2 years. 2 years of going to her either once a week or once every 2 weeks. And then I sort of tapered off once I started to find my footing again. And what I said in the beginning about incremental steps, it was 1 step forward, 5 steps back. 2 steps forward, 20 steps back. 3 steps forward, 1 step forward, 5 steps back. It's like that was my whole journey of going through the grief and the anger and the depression and the resentment and all of those emotions that I'm sure you went through as well when you lost your brother. And how can I move through all of these emotions? And that is a journey. It is not it is a daily process. It is not, like I said, it's not take a pill, it's over. It's just a daily thing. And I still struggle with the loss of my brother and my dad, even though I teach now and I've written all these books and I work one-on-one with clients and I can actually connect to people on the other side. It doesn't mean that I still don't have those crappy days where it sucks. And you're like, why are they not here with me physically? And why can't I call my brother on the phone and talk to my dad? And why can't you talk to your brother? And, like it still sucks. Like it's still, right? You can move through grief and you can be happy. And there'll be a day when you're like sucker punched in the face and like pulling your eyes out, right?
Well, and that's exactly what I tell people. It's like, these are just emotions. They're just results. They're not the cause. And people all like, they blame your emotion on how you feel. It's just like, no, because of your thoughts and stuff like that, it's just an emotional response. So you get depressed because you miss your brother, or I miss my brother, or something bad happened. It's not abnormal to feel depressed. You just have to fight to get out of it. Obviously, don't stay down there. That's when it becomes bad. But I do love that you added into the whole thing that it's an incremental thing, right? That's actually one of the reasons why we called it Start Day One, our nonprofit foundation, because people get so overwhelmed that they think tomorrow I should be happy as hell, right? Like I should be really good. After talking to Laura and after the show, I should be good. But like, no. What we're saying is you need to start day one. Day one means there's a day 2, day 3, day 4, because it's not because you're so overwhelmed because you have so much to change. You just don't know where to start. It's kind of like when you have so much work to do, like, oh my God, I have to do this, I have to do this. Really, you just don't know where to start. And so that's what we're trying to say is like, you just have to start. Start day one. Anything. Any sense of progress is going to help you out tremendously. And that's what always happens. So, the way she's talking, you also brought up how antidepressants, to me, I feel the same way. So just like Laura mentioned that your emotion, basically she kind of mentioned the 5 stages of grief. You go through denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And like she said, you're going to jump around. And even when after you go through acceptance, doesn't mean you don't go back to depression, but you will never feel acceptance unless you go through it. And depression is almost always the last stage. And that's why I always tell people when they're depressed, I'm like, good. I mean, it sounds kind of weird to say, but, but it changes their perspective right away when I tell them.
Yeah, you're moving forward. Absolutely.
Not only that, because all of a sudden it changes them and they go, whoa, what do you mean good? Because I'm like, yeah, you're almost there. Like, that's the hardest part. Like, you're almost there. And unless you go through it, the antidepressants numb that. The alcohol, numb that. That's why it feels so good to drink when you're freaking lonely, and because then you don't feel the pain. So, but when we talk about that, right, the pain. So one of the things that I'm curious what your insight is on this. So the way I've seen with people, I've seen pain as such a distraction, right? It's kind of, I refer to like a toothache. When you have a toothache, it's not that Laura's being a bitch. She has a toothache, so she might go, can you shut the door? Not because she takes you for granted, not because of anything else, but she's distracted by pain right now. And then you almost always goes, I'm so sorry. Just this freaking pain is killing me. Except obviously when it comes to mental health, it's more an emotional pain. But my problem with it is that the pain that's distracting the people that have mental health issues, you're causing your pain. You have a hammer to your tooth.
Well, there's
and
a
you're going
famous quote. I think when we talked on the phone last week, there's a quote, and it's I believe the Buddha, and it says, all human suffering is caused by wanting things to be different than they are. And I love that
Wow.
quote. Like when I was learning to teach meditation and becoming certified, that was the one quote that stuck out to me. All human suffering is caused by wanting things to be different than they are. And then, in spirituality, and it's all about living in the now, being present in now, that there only is now in your life. There only is what is happening. And we're constantly focusing on what we don't have. We're focusing on this person's better than me. This person has more followers than me. This person's prettier than me. This person's skinnier than me. This person's fatter than me. This person's taller, shorter, has more money, has a nicer car, a bigger house. Like that's all we do is focus on what we don't have. And that's where the pain comes. The pain, both emotionally and physically, because we are the torturer. We are the ones that are causing the physical things that are going on in our body. And science is starting to learn and put more information about how the mind and the body are interconnected and how they control one another. So it's just like, stop what you said, stop hammering. You're the one who's hammering yourself every time you focus on what you don't have, every time you focus on the pain.
Right, because it's already in the past. During that time, yes, that was what caused the pain. But afterwards, once you're safe and you're in a safe environment, you're the only one doing it to yourself. Whether your dad, some kind of post-traumatic stress from some incident, you're the only one bringing it back because it's not happening anymore. And you're the only one. And the thing is, and that's what I tell people, it's like, it's kind of like we have to stop, even to adults, giving everyone a freaking trophy, right? We have to tell them, like, you're kind of accountable, like, because no matter what I or you say to the audience today, we don't help anyone. Everyone just helps themselves because the answers are actually within you, and it's always within you. We almost can't do anything unless you decide that you want to get better. And kind of like what you were saying before.
Because you're like, we're handing people keys, especially as mental health experts, counselors, whatever. What I do as a, one-on-one with clients, working as a medium and as a channel, I'm just there to give them the keys, but they have to use it. They have got to use it. In fact, I do this thing, I do past life regression with people, and we do this thing with past life, and I use doors to get them into past lives. But I'm very clear as a channel that I can't open their doors for them. So I can bring them in and I can help them see into past lives, but they have to actually in their own mind open the door, or I can't help them. And that's like the same thing. Like, it is upon you to take what you're learning, to take what you already know on the inside, to bring that out of you and make that decision every day, sometimes every moment, to say, I want to get better. I want to heal. I want to focus on what's good in my life. I want to have some gratitude for things, so that you can start to flow, because everything is momentum and flow. So the law of the universe that people have heard so much about recently and over the last 20 years is law of attraction. So that which is likened to itself is drawn. So when you have that thought of pain and sadness and frustration, you are giving life to that thought, right? And that's what's going to flow. But when you start to pull back and you focus, wait a minute, I'm not going to let that thought run me. I'm going to focus on gratitude for a moment. I'm going to focus on the joys that I have. Like, it changes your energy, and then you start to flow differently. So now you're flowing towards those happy, good thoughts until wham, another negative thought comes in, karate chops you, and then you're pulled back into the negativity. It's like, this is the dance that we do on earth between joy and pain, joy and pain. And here you are in the middle, getting to decide, which path am I going to go on?
Yeah. I like that you do that. What's funny, before, when you're talking about like what actually made you go to basically fight against it, right? What was your next move, and what made you do that? When you mentioned your son in that aspect, one of the things that I learned, that the future version of you is so much more important than people really think. And it's something we don't really do. And it's funny is because as you get older, the less you kind of envision yourself and, go into like fantasy world about your future. Like before, like you were saying before, you were talking about, people always looking for, what they don't have in this. That's when you end up focusing so much. This one, I forget who the person was. They referred to it as the gain and the gap. When people are, living in the gap, basically what they don't have, what they haven't done, and everything else, and they're not looking at the gains. And when you actually make it a habit to look at all your gains of what you're doing and how you're progressing, any little gain, it could be so small, because the only time frustration happens when expectations high and you can't get there. So you, like, for example, I read this somewhere a while ago. The American dream is dead, and 40 to 50% of Americans don't think it's alive anymore. And I'm just like, wait, first we got to talk about, what do you mean about American dream?
Yeah.
Are you talking about mansions, Lamborghinis? Because that's not it. I hope you know that.
Yeah.
Anyone that's watching, it's not, because the American dream was that you get to keep the fruits of your labor and you have a family with a white picket fence and a damn dog. Like, that was the dream. People from all over the world came to the United States so they can achieve that, not so they can have the biggest house on the block but people have made that now the dream. So now they're living in the gap, like, oh, I'm not a millionaire. I guess I'm not living the American dream. Well, when you're living in that, you'll never be happy. And the problem is the future version, when you're looking at that all the time. So we're always evolving, right? There's the present, there's the past, and then there's the future version of you. It's always moving, right? I've learned when people get depressed, it's not because of what you can see about your past. It's what you can't see about your future. Mm-hmm. But what's funny is when you start seeing that future, you can actually alter the way you see your past. It's so weird.
When you can see a vision of what's possible for you and what you can create with joy. So that's like the thing. When you see it with excitement and anticipation rather than how am I going to get there? I always say it's like you're bumping into the walls of your why and your how. So here's your why. This is your wall over here. That's the past, right? And then over here is the wall of the future. That's your how. And this is what people do. Oh, I really want to be, I want to win an Oscar one day. But this teacher told me that I was a terrible actress when I was in high school. So I just don't know. And I didn't get that commercial that I really wanted. So I just don't know. Oh, how am I going to get there? How am I going to find, how is someone going to notice me? How am I going to get my first big acting job? And this is our dance. It's why didn't this happen? How am I going to make it? Why not? Why didn't somebody like me? How can I make people like me? And then we just constantly are going back and forth, bonking into those whys and hows rather than going straight on that path. And I liken it to the Wizard of Oz. I've said this many times. It's like the Wizard of Oz. So you've got the yellow brick road in front of you, and in front of you is that vision of what you want to create. Like you said, like see that vision ahead of you. That's your Emerald City. That's you want to create that amazing thing in your life, whether you want to be the biggest boxer in the world, whether you want to, whatever it is. And then you follow that yellow brick road. Okay, so what happens on the yellow brick road? You bump into the Tin Man, you bump into the Scarecrow and the Cowardly Lion, and then flying monkeys come at you. And that's the journey that we all take as humans, right? We're always like, oh, this is distracting me, and that's distracting me, and now there's got flying monkeys, and I can't take this anymore. And then finally, eventually, if you stay on the yellow brick road, no matter how long it takes you on that path, you get to your Emerald City. You get to that thing that you wanted to create, that big mansion, that job, that wife, whatever it is. And then what happens at the end of Wizard of Oz? What does Glinda say to Dorothy? You always had the power inside, my dear.
Yeah, that's right.
You had the power. Right. So all she had to do was know on the inside that she could get to her Emerald City. Right. And none of the things that she bumped into on the yellow brick road would have stopped her. She would have gotten there on a much faster path. But wasn't it fun that she got to meet the Tin Man? And wasn't it fun that she got to meet the Cowardly Lion, even though it was a pain in the butt in the beginning? And the flying monkeys were hard. and it was a painful thing to go through, but didn't she get stronger, and didn't she become a fighter because she had to fight off the Wicked Witch and the flying monkeys? And when she got to the end, wasn't it so much more important? Wasn't it so much more amazing to finally get home because of the journey that she had taken? And that's the journey of life right there. Like when you get that vision, when you see it, stay on your yellow brick road and don't be so distracted by all the things that come up. But if they do, be grateful, because they're going to get you there. They're going to make you stronger, and they're going to make it so much more meaningful when you get to the end.
Exactly. And that's how it helps, right? When you have that future version of you. So, when you're really in a bad place, it's like, let's put example, a breakup.
Yeah.
When you get a breakup, man, what makes it so hard is because you had such a different blueprint of your life. You had everything, all you envision is with this person, with this person, with this person. All of a sudden, not anymore. And you're like, whoa. I have zero plans or future that doesn't have that in it. So I can't visualize this. And so that's where people get hurt. It's like they want to maintain this past version of themselves, but we're always evolving. No matter what you do, we're always going to evolve. It doesn't matter. When you don't, it's weird. That's when you're kind of really sick, right? But you're always evolving. The Laura that we meet today is not the same one that we could have met 10 years ago, and definitely not going to be the same one 10 years from now. Right?
Even 10 days from now.
Yeah, even 10 days. And especially when some traumatic event happened or something, reverse of trauma, right? Trauma and really big events can accelerate the evolution, the change.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, I was just talking to someone about this, kind of my own little theory is like, we're always evolving, but people that have this, this thing of keeping who they were is what's really causing the real emotional heartbreak and emotional issues, because they don't want to evolve. Like, yeah, but I want to be that person before the trauma. Like, I want to be that person. Mm-hmm. But it's like, yeah, too late.
But that doesn't work. You're never going to be that same person. And so now you have to work through that trauma rather than staying stuck in the trauma and the whys. Why did this happen to me? Because you will never be that person.
Yeah.
You will never be the person after you lost your brother to suicide. I will never be the same person I was before my brother died and my dad died.
Yeah, and the thing is, you shouldn't want to be the same person from the past anyway. You always want to be a better version of that. So you don't even want to be that person anyway. So whatever, you went through something else. And like you said, you might meet the freaking scarecrow. You might meet a lion along the way, things like that. I like when you refer to your son. So what Laura did was see a future version of herself with her son, right? And once that's in place and you're just like, well, now suicide, depression, all this bullshit going this way is not in line with my purpose.
Yeah.
So that's really important for anyone that's going through anything. Like, purpose is intentional. People think purpose just kind of comes up like, oh, how did Laura find her purpose? It just kind of happened. No, it's actually intentional. You actually have to decide to do that. It's not something that just happens. Same thing with passion. Passion doesn't come out of like, holy shit, I'm passionate about surfing and I've never surfed before. Weird. Like, you have to have surfed first before you even have passion for it, before you even think you have a purpose for it. From her experience, that's why, Laura got this purpose. Like, if all these things didn't happen or she didn't experience any of these things, she would have had a completely different purpose. Like, it wouldn't have been what she's doing today. It's same with me. Like, here I am with a nonprofit foundation. I don't know that wasn't part of my plan. Not at all. I never even talked about my brother, but her visualizing that, because then what happens is when you see that future version of yourself, everything that you do will kind of follow that, because her perspective changed, and all your decisions tend to follow your perspective. And, you were talking about, how you were saying the spiritual universe, the all, like everything, right? I was watching this one, forget what it was. You'll actually love, it was the author of Mind Over Medicine, because Laura was mentioning before about how the mind and body is actually interconnected. It is. And some doctor proved that thing. So there's a book, Mind Over Medicine. But anyway, one of her YouTube things, just wanted to learn more about her. She was interviewing this other lady. So she was suicidal for like 18 years. And I'm like, damn, like, what do you mean you were suicidal for 18 years? And she's like, I took the pills, anxiety pills, depression, antidepressants, things like that. She's like, didn't work. I was just this. And then 18 years later, do you know what shifted everything? All she did, it had to take talking to the Dalai Lama for her to finally goes, oh, I'm one with the universe. Yeah. That's all she needed, though.
Yeah.
That's all she needed. She didn't get a magic pill.
Yeah.
She didn't get some kind of daily ritual, something. Her perspective went, oh, I'm this little thing, part of the universe. And all of a sudden, her perspective changed. And she never went back to it. Because once your perspective shifts, it just kind of like changes everything.
That's rare, though. That's a rare, like, there's not, I mean, that does happen. And I know other people who have that, they had like a astral projection dream, and all of a sudden they're like, I'm at one with the universe. I totally get it. Right. And you're like, and after everything that I've been through for the last 7 years, I'm like, well, lucky you, because that is not the journey for most people. Most people go on that very, very long up and down back and forth journey. So, but I know from being a medium and a channel and being able to connect to the other side, that moment in her life was chosen. Like, she chose it on a soul level to allow that to happen, so that it can open up all of her other possibilities of what she could create in this lifetime. So everything in life is purposeful on a soul level. We set these soul contracts, and they have different things in them, and they have all these different possibilities for what we can create based upon the actions of love or fear and which way you go. And so it's always about knowing that if you see something, it's because you can create it. It is a creatable thing. So if you see yourself, like I would say, going back to my son, I always see myself when he's graduating from college and sitting in the stands and cheering him on. And those are those moments where I just get so excited, where I know that's possible. And I know that I have to be there, and I have to fix myself, and I have to maybe what we said the show's title was consistent conscious choices, that I consciously know that I want to be there for my son and maybe one day other kids, and that it's important that I take care of my mental health and my mental wellness in order to be at that moment, which I see in my visioning of him graduating. So those moments where you see what's ahead of you with joy and passion and purpose, use that as much as you can on the days where it's hard, on the days where you're struggling, because there are those days. There are days when you just don't want to get out of bed, no matter how spiritual you are. Something will come along and wipe your spirituality out. I was just I'm writing a 4th book, and the chapter I was writing about today was about how the universe is always giving us signs that we're being guided and that we are one with the universe. But then the universe will also give us signs that it's not there. And it'll give you those moments where you're like, there is no God, there is no universe, there is no source. All this stuff is BS. I don't believe in it anymore, because something knocked you off your butt. And that is just as purposeful, because that's the journey. If you already knew everything that we know inside, then you wouldn't be having this magic trip to the Emerald City, right? If you already knew that. So sometimes the universe has to come along and wipe that wave. You're standing there at the edge of the ocean, and you're like, I'm very balanced. And then boom, all of a sudden, it comes and wipes you on your butt. And that's exactly what will happen with the universe. And even somebody like that woman who all of a sudden woke up, I promise you that things will be coming. Circumstances are going to be thrown at her for her to deal with. There's a quote I've been saying for the last couple of weeks to people, and that is, wherever there is still pain, there is still fear. So whatever that pain is, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, it's an indicator that you still have work to do on a soul level to get rid of the thoughts of who you are, which is you think you're just a human, and remind you that you are a soul, that you are a spiritual being, that you're here having a spirit, you're a human being you're a spiritual being having a human experience, to remind you of that. And anytime there's a pain, whether you stub your toe or whether your house burns down in a fire, it's an indicator that there are things that you need to work on a soul level, not only in this lifetime, but in all the lifetimes that are concurrently happening as a fragment of the one soul.
Right, right. Actually, yeah, it's funny because that's actually why I tell people, you know, everyone knows this concept, right? Live life to the fullest.
Mhm.
And I always just kind of bash them like this. And I tell them, like, it's actually impossible. And what's funny is the more that they understand how it's impossible, the closer they actually live to the fullest. It's funny. And because people don't understand, like she said, mental health is just like exercise. And I say this over and over
Yes,
again. It's not
100%.
something, oh, I'm in shape, I can eat anything now, I don't need to exercise, I don't need to eat healthy. Like, no, even when you're in shape, you actually have to exercise and eat well, or else you're always going to go towards that way.
Yep.
Always. It's not a maybe, it's always going to go that way if you stop doing that. Same thing with your mental health. If you decide, like, oh, I'm fully healthy, I don't need to I can be with the most negative people around the world, I can now think like crap, and well, guess
Yep.
where you're going to go? And it's harder to see when it's your mental health because there's
Yeah.
no physical proof of it,
Yep.
and no one else can actually see
Oh,
it.
there's mental proof of it, though. There is
Right,
absolutely
right,
mental proof of it. You know
right.
when you are out of joy. You know when you are
Definitely.
in negativity. You feel it not only you know it in your mind, but you do feel it
Yeah,
in your body too. So it is plainly obvious when you're not in a good
yeah,
mental place.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I tell them, it's like, what's funny is, how you were saying before, like, you're gonna go through some other shit. Just because, like, Laura went through this doesn't mean, like, tomorrow she's not gonna complain, like, fuck, it's raining. Like, we're always doing that. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. If it doesn't rain for a freaking year, all of a sudden it rains, you're gonna go like, oh, thank you, Lord. Finally, it's raining. So it's all about that supply and demand. That's why they call it the law of supply and demand. It's like the value tends to go up more when there's less supply of it, right? And then there's too much demand, So it always applies. But people, you guys have to understand that life, it's just that's what it's the struggle.
That's
All
what it's
that stuff.
for.
It's part of life.
Right. That's what
And
life
you know
is
how I
for.
tell people, now, since you're in the TV business, you know what I
Yeah.
tell them? I'm like, have you ever seen a movie that had no struggle or conflict? Like,
Right.
even Superman has kryptonite, because if
Yeah.
he didn't, no one would watch it. Like, so
Right.
let me see what happens. He just won. Yeah, Superman
Right.
won.
Movie's over. Right.
Right, like,
Yeah. Nobody wants to watch that movie.
yeah.
Absolutely not. Right.
Imagine a video game that you play, but you win first
Every
try.
time. Every time. Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was great. All right, next game. So it's actually mandatory to have that struggle. It's actually what makes your life a lot more interesting.
Yes.
Laura, right now, we're talking to her because of all her experiences, and you're going, holy shit, you went through what? And you're smiling like crazy. Wow. And so it actually makes her life so much more interesting. And the thing is, it keeps on going, is because what she sees in the future. What does she want to accomplish? The second she stops that and there's no version of herself in the future, that's when problems starts happening. And when she talks about, like, when you're mentioning, like, oh, bad things are going to happen. So that's the wonderful part of having a purpose. Purpose doesn't give a fuck about negative or positive, because you're trying to go this way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help people, but then all of a sudden shit happens and it's just like, but my purpose remains. And so that is the beauty of having a sense of purpose, because if you were given a choice, you go towards, you go towards pleasure, and you go away from pain. Like,
Yep.
oh, this sucks, I'm not doing this, but,
Yeah.
but when you say my purpose is this, you don't care. It's like, well, I have to do it. If her purpose was, that she's going to have to work hard in this, it's like, yeah, no. Who wants to work hard on purpose? Like, no one. But if it fits your purpose, and that's what happens when you have
If it's your purpose, it's not work. It doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah. But
you're excited to get up and do it, and you're excited to share it. And so
Right.
it doesn't feel like that awful feeling that you get when you have to go to a job that you hate and you don't like, or it's just to work the money. But the minute you get up and you're just like, you know what? I love it. I remember Al Pacino, there was an interview that he did. I don't think it was my interview, actually. I think it's like a famous interview. But he said, like, they don't pay me to act. They pay me to promote the movie. Like he would show up, and it's true. Like, you make millions of dollars as an actor, and most actors would probably say like, I love going to set and I love being another character and making the movie. But the worst part of it is sitting across from Laura Saltman of Access Hollywood talking about the stupid movie. And then I have to be interviewed by 100 other journalists. And then I got to go to every red carpet and get interviewed by 1 million people online. And like that, and that's the work that you have to pay them for, that part of it. But the purpose part, I love being an actor and acting is my passion. That stuff is free, right?
Part of the package. So it's like, hey, the whole interview that's all part of the package, Yep. I mean, he would rather not, but it's like, it's not going to work.
But it's part of the deal, right? It's part of the deal.
Right. And that's what happens, when some people actually have their sense of purpose. And again, I got to reiterate, purpose is something intentional. It's not accident. It's not, you have to go, this is going to be my purpose. You actually have to sit down, just like, that's why entrepreneurship seems to play a lot into the mental health game. And I always tell people, because same thing with entrepreneurship, when you have a business and you want it to be mission driven, it's not just mission driven on its own. You have to come up with a mission. You have to come up with a purpose and figure out what the hell is your purpose with this business. But people, you have to also understand that everything that you do is just an extension of you. The startup is, all my businesses is just an extension of me. Start Day One, Phuket Clothing, Paid Exposure, it's just an extension of me. What I do, what I've been experienced with and things like that. But you have to treat yourself like a startup. Like, what's your purpose? What's your mission? Sit the fuck down and figure that out. Like, you can't, it's not just going to come to you and be like, oh, I got it. you know? So we really got to work on that. And
it lives inside of you. That purpose actually lives inside of you. So it's bringing it out, and that intention, if you set that intention to go on that journey of figuring out what the purpose is, it will eventually start to come to you. What is that purpose in life? And sometimes what I've learned is that the things that you did before you got to your purpose were all part of the journey to get you there, but also to help you excel at whatever that purpose. Because we all have something, we're all here to serve, right? We're here serving one another in some way. And so in order to be the best server that you can be, there has to be things that have happened to you and things that you've learned, both good and bad, that are going to help you. Like, the things that you're learning to help your organization, your nonprofit, the things that I learned to help what I'm doing on as a channel, as a medium, as a spiritual coach, whatever it is. A lot of the things I'm doing now, actually, I'm learning how to do them from having worked at Access Hollywood. Some of the things that I'm learning about, like putting video content out into the world, or because I did that stuff before. If I hadn't done all that stuff beforehand, who knows if anybody would have ever bought my book, knew anything about me, but all that was part of it. So it's just like when it comes to mental health and mental wellness, it's just knowing that everything has a purpose for you, whether it's good or bad. And the choice that you have to make every day, constant, consistent choice, is to look at it and say, what is this teaching me? How am I growing from this? How can this help me? How is this getting me to my purpose? What can I serve? How can I serve in the world? Rather than, what is life not giving me? Who pissed me off today? The weather sucks today. I'm not making enough money. My car got towed. It's just constantly going back to, everything has a lesson for you. Everything is trying to grow you and evolve you as a human and as a soul.
Right. And actually, in one additional thing, for people, so I hope you guys are taking notes. So Laura's talking about some good stuff here. But one thing about purpose, when you think of purpose and you're trying to really develop that and sitting down, like, you have to understand what's entailed in a purpose, right? You have to know that there has to be some action word when you say purpose. You can't have a purpose and say, I want to be the richest man around. That's just a noun. It can never be a noun. Another thing is that a purpose usually means, it's usually, like she said, and that's actually what reminded me, it usually serves other people.
Yes.
You're providing some kind of value for other people. Almost all the time, a purpose is never because I want to be able to go into my Lamborghini every day and not,
I want to make millions of dollars. That's not a purpose.
Never about you. A purpose never serves. It's like, well, so the whole world can love me. Like that's just not a purpose. a purpose.
And that doesn't mean you can't make money from that purpose. You can absolutely make money, right? You can, if your purpose is to be a famous actor and work in movie roles, you may not realize that part of that purpose was to play that part, because people are going to see that movie and they're going to resonate with the character that went through struggles. And maybe you were paid $10 million from that, but the purpose was because you were living your passion or doing your passion, and then the money will flow to you.
I was going to say, the purpose is not going to be like, oh, I want to be a famous actor. Again, that's a noun. I want to be able to enhance people's lives by entertaining them.
Yes,
that is the purpose.
Yep,
because there's now a verb. It's an action verb. It's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And so you know, when you guys are developing this, because what happens is when you have an action word, it's infinite. You will never ever reach an end when you say, I want to entertain and enhance people's lives through acting. That's never ending. You could be 90 years old and still acting because you're still fulfilling your purpose. And so that's what makes that important. That's why it has to be an action word. It's the same thing. That's why they call it a cause. And people that are going through issues, you have to understand that a cause is always a verb, an action word. It is never a noun. You can never ever say, what's wrong with you? Depression. What? That doesn't say anything at all. That's just a noun. Like, what do you mean? What's happening? Well, it's what's depressing you. What are you doing that's causing the depression? You can't just go like, oh, I have PTSD, so I take pills. What? Wait, what? That's the cause? No. What's cause? What's the cause? And that's why people never ever get any better, because they think the cause is a noun. Oh, because I lost my brother. That doesn't do anything. That all it did was, what's causing me to pain and emotional issues is because I can't let go of my brother.
Yeah.
That is the cause.
Right.
So see the difference, people? Like, you have to see what's the verb happening.
Right.
That's what you have to concentrate on. For example, military, PTSD. I can't let go of the feeling of what I saw during the war. That's the cause. Never call it PTSD ever again. Ever. Because when you call it that, it becomes invisible and you don't even know what the hell you're fighting 10 years from now. Like, and because all you keep telling people is, I have PTSD. That's why I'm an alcoholic. And people, when you're in a bad situation, you tend to, we all do, so don't take me the wrong way, right? Laura, when you're in a bad place and it's a really shitty day, we love our excuses, and accountability is the last thing we want. It's not our fault. What do you mean? Like, it's not our fault. But not only because you're in a bad place. That's why all of a sudden, once you get in a good place, guess what happens? What people say, I guess everything happens for a reason.
Right.
But there was no reason for it to happen when you're in a good place.
The thing is that I know this from my dad, you know, having struggled with mental illness after my brother passed away, and some of, you know, the other life choices. And of course, the life that he led younger, and had a father who was not the best dad, and mother who was struggling with her own mental wellness. And it's hard. Like, I've been depressed. I've been at that point of suicidal myself when I was actually pregnant with my son. And so it's hard. Like, I get what you're saying in terms of, like, it's, you know, the PTSD, and you can just make those choices, but that's the importance of the consistency, the consistent choices that you make, because the more that you are consistent with recognizing the pain and trying to work with it, knowing that it's there. You can't just snap your fingers and say, oh, I'm going to be happy because somebody told me to be happy. It's that daily work that you do, those consistent choices of watching your thoughts, of saying, like, it's not that just that I'm depressed, it's that there is a reason, like that the awareness that you're talking about. Like, you're trying to get people to understand that they have to be aware of the demons and what demons are causing the depression, and not just think like, okay, I'll be happy now. Because I think there's something in our society right now, and this is one of my purposes out in the world, is everybody says, oh, just be positive and think happy. Okay. Not as easy as people say it is, because the truth is that the dance between love and fear and back and forth and pain and joy is a very difficult one. And so it has to be a daily moment, an every moment thing of when those thoughts of despair come up, rather than think, oh, I'm going to be positive and happy, and I'm going to go have a drink with my friends and forget about it. It's, I know there's pain there. I'm going to work with it. And the more that you work with it, and this is law of attraction, the more that you do work with that pain, and the more that you go deep within the pain and work with that PTSD and work with that trauma, then the more you're going to have days where you're not going to focus on pain, where there's going to be lighter things in your life to focus on. And it really is. It's like, you've got the twine and you're here. And every single time that you start to focus on conscious and consistent choices, you're pulling that twine away and allowing yourself to breathe. Whereas when you're here focusing on the pain, you can't breathe, right? You cannot breathe. So you've got to work on the thought processes every day to take that string and allow yourself breath. And that's why I teach meditation now. Meditation is so important because it allows you some time to breathe and to think and to go within and to think about all those things. But when you're numbing yourself with alcohol and antidepressants and all of the things and whatever it is, motorcycle rides for hours, like if you're numbing yourself with something to get out of the pain, you're not going into the pain, right? You're not doing this. You're just staying right here. I'm going to do this now. And this is going to make me happy for 2 seconds, but it's just always constantly working with it to bring that from this to this. And I promise you, it's not a snap your fingers. Somebody told me to think better. It's just not that. It's not that.
And that's actually, when I talk to people, and that's why, it always starts with that purpose, right? Because it's like everything goes on, follows each other. So when you don't have a purpose, it's almost everything ahead of that is going to be shot. If your perspective is not in line with your purpose, well, all your decisions follow that. So that's going to be shot. So it always kind of keeps on happening. And even if you have the right perspective, you don't make the decision, well, nothing's going to happen. Even after you make the decision, you didn't make the goals, you didn't make the passion, well, none of this is going to happen. So it's always one step after the other, but you always got to go back to here to figure out where's the cause of the problem. Is it here, or is it here? Like, for example, like, when people talk about the mental health, right? Suicide is here. Everyone just got on World Suicide Prevention Day today. My thing is that everything starts with a bad perspective. Yeah. When you have a bad perspective, that evolves to becoming suicidal tendencies. Obviously, suicide will be the end if you succeed, right? Everything in between, to me, is complaining on Monday here, my girlfriend sucks, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide. Like, all of that is one line. You just happen to take different ways. You might be on antidepressants. You might be taking pills rather than alcohol. Those are just like what you're doing, but it's all one line because it's all the same cause. Whatever it is, it's over here. I don't know what it is, but usually it's your perspective on something. Almost always, it's always your perspective on something is not right. You think you're a loser. You think you're not going to make it. You think the world sucks. You think it's because your perspective. So you can think positive thoughts all you want, but all you did was remedy the result.
Right. It's a Band-Aid. The positive thoughts are a Band-Aid for the larger, deep core within problems. It's just it's not going to fix it. It's never going to fix it. Yeah,
because people that are walking around going like, oh my God, I've been dealing with depression since 2017. I'm like, holy shit, you have a specific date when you recognize that emotion? No one goes around saying like, oh my God, I've been dealing with happiness 2017.
That's true. I've been happy for 20 years.
Right. I've been happy for like
I've been
20
depressed
years.
for 3.
I've never had anyone pass away on me.
Right.
Nothing. Yeah. It's impossible. It's just an emotional response. Happiness is the same thing.
Yeah.
But you can't just go one way and the other. And you think if you have a positive perspective, you almost never, it's impossible to go and take a negative route. It's impossible. It's impossible because you can't be happy thoughts and be depressed. You can pretend happy thoughts and be depressed, but the real, genuine, it's impossible. And so that's why I always try to you have to track all right, where's the cause here? What is happening? So those are the kind of things that, that we hope that the audience kind of check out. Anything else about the consistent choices, and like, I like that you say the consistent choices, and conscious is important, by the way, guys.
Consistent choices, conscious. So the greatest gift we have as a human being is awareness, because we're conscious of our thoughts. So we can be aware of what we're thinking. Right. And we have free will on this planet. Free will. There's a quote that I posted a couple weeks ago that I wrote, and that is, life is choice, and free will is the pen that you use to write your own story. So you have these choices between love and fear. We're on this planet called Earth to learn about being unconditional love. That is God, that is source, that is the universe, through the lens of fear. And every thought we think is to help us return back into unconditional love. And so if you are aware of your thoughts, then you can change your thoughts. So the minute that a thought comes up, you can say, is this the true thought? Am I a loser? Of course I'm not a loser. The universe loves me and I'm supported and I'm here for a reason. I'm poor. Well, are you poor really? If you have an amazing family and you have a job and right. security, like, it's always about the choice that you make of the thought. Is the thought going to sink me, or I'm going to work with it and figure out why I have this thought? Because what I know for sure is that we are loved and supported and guided always. We are never without our soul portion of us, which knows the truth of who we are. And we're never without this beautiful, loving presence that we all come from. And they want us to live as joyful of a life as possible, knowing that we will have some circumstance. Some karate chops are going to come in here and there. Absolutely. By the way, I'm watching Cobra Kai. That's where I keep having all these loving Cobra Kai. So I'm all about the karate chops right now. But we really are guided and supported. I work with clients every day who we're talking to, people that have crossed over, their loved ones who have crossed over, with angels, with guides, with messengers, who are giving me these messages where I know confidently and securely that we do have this amazing support system that comes first from within and then also from without. So meaning, whatever you want to call it, God, source, universe, whatever you call it. And when you make consistent choices to work with your soul and then work with your go-to team, which is your outside source and your inside source, then you can start to lessen the grip of fear and ego and pain so that you can start to live a more joyful life. And that only comes from consistency. When I first started working with my spiritual life coach, who I started with right after my dad died, she would say to me, what is your daily practice? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I think I lied to her in the beginning. I never really had a daily practice. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't journaling. I wasn't going for walks. I wasn't doing anything for me. And I would just I'd make stuff up in the beginning. And I didn't really understand why that was important until about a year later, when I finally started meditating in the morning, journaling every single day, writing books, whatever I've been doing. How when you are consistent and you do things every day on a spiritual level, a soul level, a mindset level, whatever you want to call it, how you start to be able to breathe, and the depression lessons and the anxiety lessons and the fear lessons. And you start to become happier, right? Even when the bricks are piling up and the karate chops are coming. And I finally get it. It is about consistency. If you want to know how to get out of depression, if you want to know how to lessen your anxiety, if you want to know how to not to have so much pain in your physical body, it's using your awareness to make conscious choices about who you are and why you are here, and what it's like to be kind and loving, not only to other people, but most importantly to yourself. Self-love, it's such a cliche, right? You hear it all the time. But that's the journey. We're here to learn about loving the self. Like, when you love yourself, you don't need other things. You don't need other people. You don't need the relationship. You don't need the alcohol. You don't need the drugs. Because when you truly love yourself, you would never put that in your body. You would say, I know that's going to harm me, and I don't want that in my body, and I want to treat my body as kindly. So I'm going to go to yoga today, or I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes. I'm not going to get stuck in this muck, because everything is, as you say, it's about your perspective. If you're going to sit there and complain and moan, then guess what? Then that's how you're going to stay stuck. But if you're going to stop for a second and say, wait a minute, I'm aware of my choices right now. I'm aware of my conscious thoughts. You know what? I'm not going to make that choice to use that thought. I'm going to make a choice to go read a book. I'm going to go watch your show. I'm going to go buy a piece of clothing that's going to, have a great saying on it. That's going to remind me that I'm freaking awesome. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You're always accountable. You're always accountable for your own happiness. No one can make you happy.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, you can love someone, you can be in a relationship, but they're not the ones making you are always the one making you happy. Like they might enhance it, but it's really your call, because you could be with the same person and be completely unhappy, and all because of you, right? And
I think we all know beyond a shadow of a doubt that people who are constantly looking for money in their life, and they're like, oh, if I could only be rich, if I could only be rich. And I think we all know that money does not buy happiness. It is a Band-Aid. Right. And if you are not happy on the core inside, then you chase things. You chase the money, you chase the cars, you chase things to try to make you happy. And it might make you happy for a minute. Like if somebody wants to, buy me a Mercedes and like leave it on a boat on my driveway right now, like I'll be happy for that moment. Right. But you know what? The minute that somebody pisses me off or somebody cuts me off in traffic, guess what? I'm going to go right back to being miserable. And then I'm going to go seeking. Well, somebody cut me off in traffic and I'm pissed. So now I'm going to go have a drink because I need to, it's like, it'll never be enough. It's never be until you understand that you are enough. Exactly. And that's what always happens. And it's funny, like when we talk about perspectives and stuff like that, a lot of times people don't understand too, your perspectives. And you have to be consistent. Yeah, it has to be consistent. It can't be like, well, I want to party and live my life and be happy, but without working. It's like, ooh, I don't know if that. So, like for example, people always, when we talk about suicide and stuff like that, they go like, yeah, I know Robin Williams, right? Like he had everything, fame and fortune. And now Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade.
Yeah, we can keep on going, all the rock stars and stuff.
Kurt Cobain.
And the thing is, what I tell people now, every time when I hear that, and I'm just like,
doesn't matter.
You think money buys happiness? No. And I'm like, so why is it weird that they were depressed? Yep. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do. Your problems might be, like you might want that money and you're going to be happier, you think. Right. But that's not where it stems from. And so your perspectives have to be consistent. So you can't say money doesn't buy happiness, but if I was just rich, I'll be happy. Like that's inconsistent. Right. That's totally inconsistent with what you just said. You said money doesn't buy happiness, but if I could only be rich. Yeah. So that's what I meant about consistency. Yeah. You have to be, and that's where purpose keeps you consistent, but you have to follow that line. Yeah. That's why it's so important to have a purpose, or else you get lost in your compass and you're just like, oh shit, what was I trying to do again? Oh yeah. I wanted to enhance people's lives through my acting. I forgot.
That's when you're caught in what Spirit would call the if-then paradox. If I, win the lottery, then I'll be happy. If I get a great relationship, then I'll be happy. Right? That's it. The if-then, but we have to live the flip side of it is when I'm happy, that's when the money arrives. When I'm happy, that's when the relationship or the baby or whatever shows up. So you have to flip that script, right? Yeah. When you are happy, that's when those things are right. And by the way, when it comes to money, like I'm not saying like you don't need money because money is a necessity on this earth, right? So we do need enough.
Oh, definitely.
Right. And it does help when you have enough, because then you can make better choices, right? But it is that notion of, I want the mansion and the cars and the millions of dollars, because the truth is you don't need millions of dollars to be happy. Money is like, if we could get rid of the monetary system on earth, we would all be a lot happier, because it is like the worst poison we can put on this planet is money, because it is such a painful thing. And especially when you've got the 1% who have most of the money and the 99% who do it. But it's like, money's literally paper. It's a made up system. Yeah, like literally, it's made up.
I forgot what I was watching. I was watching something. I think he was in a third world or something, and he was talking about the problems with suicide, and they were just like, basically they thought it was a joke. Like people want to kill themselves. That's weird. Like what? That's
Like
funny.
they don't
Like,
understand because
that's
they don't
weird.
have.
That's funny. Yeah, they
That
don't
makes
understand
total
why.
sense.
How could you have that much stress?
Right.
They're not stressing about anything.
Right. They're
just
living
like,
in the what is. They're not focusing on what they don't have.
yeah,
They're
they're just
focusing
like,
on all the joys they have because they don't have access to
yeah,
all those things. So they don't need them and they're good. Like,
yeah, exactly.
right?
They don't go
Yep.
like, oh man, if I
Yeah.
could only have those sandals, like,
Right. Exactly. If I could have those jeans, I'd be happier. They're not going,
right,
well, that guy has more coconuts than me. Right.
right. What
On
ends
an
up happening? The
island.
guy just
Right.
gives away the coconuts. Hey, you want one?
Right.
Like,
I like that guy's grass skirt better than my
right.
grass skirt. They're not
It's some
thinking that way.
bullshit.
Right. It's like, that's why they say money is the root of all evil. Right. You know,
Right,
it's just like,
right,
because then it makes you want things that you truly don't really need. All you need
right,
is to be happy and to be healthy. Right.
right.
Really. You
That's
need to have enough to be happy and healthy. And when you are happy and healthy, you don't care about anybody else's coconuts.
no,
You know,
nothing,
right?
nothing. You don't feel like you're missing out on anything.
Right.
Like, why doesn't?
Yeah.
And that's what hurts people on social media because people are
Ugh,
putting their
that's
perfect
a whole
world
other
on there.
conversation. Right.
Right, exactly. They're
Fake
like, tune
world.
in next week. You know?
Right, a fake world, the fake made up world that people place with their filters and making everything look wonderful and fabulous. And then we compare each other. And then that just causes more health problems and mental
Yeah.
problems because, again, you're focusing on what you don't have instead of what you do have. Remember what I
Right.
said in the beginning, if you're just listening now, the Buddha quote that I love so much is all human suffering is caused by wanting things to be different than they are.
Yeah.
So when you can live in the what is and be happy with what is in the moment,
Yeah.
then that's when you'll start to feel lighter and less
Yeah.
anxiety and less depression. And that's when you allow beautiful, wonderful things to come to you. But when
Yeah.
you are in a negative energy space, because everything is energy, you're
Yeah.
blocking all these amazing, awesome things coming to you because
Yeah.
you're
Right.
stuck in that negativity. So you
Right.
have to work on making those consistent choices
That's
using
right.
that beautiful mind that we all have. We all get free will to
That's
decide how we're going to live our day and how we're going to think our thoughts. And we all have the choice to, when we can't use good thoughts, when it is hard, we all have the choice to read a book, to work with a spiritual coach, to take a webinar, to watch your show, whatever it is, to help us get out of that stuckness.
Exactly. It's always a choice, people.
Yep.
And even, and also people, you need to know that you never truly know what the right choice is, but it's how you deal with the consequences. And even that is a choice. It is your choice how you're going to respond with the consequences. So no matter what, it does always come to that. Again, but it also depends on your purpose, your perspectives. And, you know, like she said, you have to be consistent. It's just like exercise. You know, you don't go hard in this and all of a sudden you think you're going to lose, you know, when you're 500 pounds, that's not what happens. Before you get to 500 pounds, try to be consistent with eating right. Try to be consistent with exercise, because then it doesn't become work. It just kind of, it becomes habit.
And then something kicks in too. Like when you do become, like in the beginning, it's hard, right? If you go to the gym, you haven't worked out either in a long time or never. And then you kind of like go back and forth where you go for a while and then you don't go for a while. But then eventually it does kick in, the habit of exercise, which just becomes the consistent. Same thing with your mind.
Right.
The more that you consistently use it, then it'll kick in, and then you're always making consistent choices.
Exactly. And then you just think positively, and then you know, it's not forcing yourself to think positive. You just kind of tend to think positive. You don't even see the negative. Not on purpose. It just kind of fades. You're just like, you know, for you, like, oh, I'm trying to be there for my son. So like all this negative bullshit, like not right now. Like I got things to do. I need to make myself better here. So yeah. So thank you so much. The hour goes by so fast when you're just, you know.
I know. I could talk for like 10 hours on this too. Trust me. I could go on and on. That's why, like, when I work with my clients, I'm like, it's an hour. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know, it's been an hour and 45 minutes. I'm like, oh, well, you know, I just can keep going and going and going. And it comes from the passion of you having lost your brother. My losing my dad to suicide is, I said this when I posted about this on Instagram that I was doing your show, is like, if one person can hear this and not have to go through what my family went through when we lost my dad in that way, and that torture that is, to the guilt that you feel, the shame that some people want to put on you, and if one person, right, all of that crap that goes with having lost somebody to suicide. You know, I think I'm very open about it because I don't have shame that my dad took his own life. I know exactly why. I know what his choices were, what he grew up in, the family that he grew up in, and the brother that he lost, and the parents that he had, and the mother who already had her own, was schizophrenic, and like everything that happened in his life, the work that he did, how he, was working so hard his whole entire life. And then when he was retired, he was like, well, now what do I do with my life? Like, how he got sick and he was a musician and he couldn't play his instrument as well. And then to have his son, suicide, it's like all of those bricks kept piling up on him. And I absolutely understand why he would want to, but I want people to know that when you have your bricks piling up, that there is a way to work with the pain and the trauma to get yourself out of there, and to make the choice to be here for your family, for your friends, for yourself. Because this is life, as much as it's a pain in the ass sometimes.
But without it, it's not life.
Right. This life can be really fun and funny and ridiculous. And we get to work with these bodies. We're borrowing these bodies. Like when you cross over to the other side, bye-bye body. Like, you know what I mean? So enjoy the life that you have in this body that you're aware of right now. Right, exactly. Yeah, thank you so much. So, we're going to keep you guys and end it with that lovely positive note. Thank you so much, Laura, for spending the time to talk to the audience and tell us, and especially on World Suicide Prevention Day. I thought it was a great talk, and what you mentioned with the consistent, conscious choices, I think it's going to help people out. So everyone that's listening, like I said in the beginning, got to make a decision to follow what she said. Because it's not going to matter what the hell you learned today unless you implement it or execute. Absolutely. So it doesn't do anything. But again, thank you guys. You can see Laura Saltman. You can visit her website. It's on the screen right now, laurasaltman.com. You can reach out to her on Instagram also. And she's very open. She's awesome. She's super sweet. And we'll probably have her again sometime in the future. So thank you, Laura. Until next time, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.